Mehdi Hasan is a British-Pakistani Muslim journalist, MSNBC host, Al Jazeera contributor, and current editor-in-chief of Zetio. He presents himself as a neutral, evidence-based journalist, just follows the facts. In a recent Triggernometry interview, he spent an hour discussing the Iran war, the Israel lobby, and US foreign policy. Let's go through his arguments one by one, because almost every major claim contains either a logical fallacy, a selective omission, or an outright distortion. Shalom. This is Middle East in less than 5 minutes. Well, your host. Let's dissect this piece by piece. See number 1. False analogy, my brother's drunk driving. Hassan argues the US joining strikes on Iran is illogical using this analogy. Imagine if you're at home and you say, my brother's about to get drunk and drive my family car and wreck it. So I'm going to wreck it first. This is a false analogy, one of the most basic logical fallacies. The analogy only works if Iran is an innocent family car. However, Iran is not. Iran is the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. Iran spent 40 years building Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Palestinian Islamic Jihad into proxy armies. Iran fired ballistic missiles directly at Israel twice, in April 2024 and October 2024. Iran's supreme leader literally leads Friday prayers, with crowds chanting death to Israel, death to America. A more accurate analogy, your brother has been shooting at your neighbor for years. Funds a gang that massacred 1,200 of your neighbor's family members. He is building a nuclear weapon, just launched 2 missile barrages. Your neighbor is about to fight back. Do you step in or let your neighbor be destroyed by a nuclear-armed terror state? The analogy collapses the moment you include the actual fact. Fallacy number 2. Conspiracy thinking dressed as evidence. The Israel tricked Trump argument. Hassan repeatedly argues Israel manipulated Trump into war. His so-called proof? Lindsey Graham said he visited Israel and received intelligence. Graham said he coached Netanyahu on how to persuade Trump. This is confirmation bias plus argument from authority, using one politician's boss statement as proof of a vast manipulation scheme. Here's what Hassan ignores. Konstantin Kisin asks him directly, if Trump didn't want to do this, he wouldn't do it. Agreed? Hassan says we are in 100% agreement. So, Trump has full agency. Agreed. Trump ordered the strikes. Trump had his own hawks. Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham, Pete Hegseth, who wanted confrontation with Iran for decades before Netanyahu entered the picture. But Hassan then immediately pivots back to Israel played a big role. You can't simultaneously argue Trump is a fully autonomous adult who makes his own decisions and that Israel manipulated him into war against his will. Pick one. Hassan wants both, so he can blame Israel without absolving Trump, which would undermine his primary thesis. Fallacy number 3. Slippery anti-Semitic trope, the all-powerful Israel lobby. Hassan compares AIPAC to the gun lobby and the farm lobby. He argues politicians support Israel not because they believe in it, but because they fear AIPAC primaries. Evidence? An unspecified poll showing 8% of Democratic voters support Israel's action in Gaza, while most Democratic Congress people vote to support Israel. He calls this a democratic crisis caused by AIPAC. This is the oldest anti-Semitic trope in the book, dressed in the language of campaign finance reform. Here's what Hassan ignores. The gun lobby is powerful because millions of Americans own guns and care passionately about gun rights. Farm lobby is powerful because millions of Americans farm and rural states have disproportionate Senate representation. AIPAC is powerful because tens of millions of Americans, Jewish and Christian, genuinely support Israel's right to exist and defend itself. Hassan's poll showing 8% of Democrats support what Israel is doing in Gaza doesn't mean 92% want to abandon Israel. It means 92% of Democrats won't love the conduct of the war. That's a very different thing. Supporting a ceasefire is not the same as opposing Israel's existence or its alliance with the US. But more importantly, why does Hassan apply this logic only to Israel? Qatar has bought influence across American universities and media with billions of dollars. Saudi Arabia spent over $1 billion lobbying Washington. China funds Confucius Institutes at American universities. Turkey funds mosques and Islamic centers across America. Iran literally funds protest organizations and campus groups. Hassan doesn't call any of this a democratic crisis. Only the Jewish state supporter corrupt America's democracy. Fallacy number 4. Moving the goalposts. Where do you start the clock? When asked about Hezbollah and Hamas destabilizing the region, Hassan says they would argue that the destabilizing began with Israel. They are a reaction to Israel's actions. Depends where you want to start. Israel invaded southern Lebanon in 1982. There was no Hezbollah in 1982. This is a start the clock wherever it suits your argument fallacy. Historians call it arbitrary historical framing. Why start in 1982? Why not 1948, when 5 Arab armies invaded Israel the day it declared independence? Why not 1929, when Arab mobs massacred Jews in Hebron and Safed, with no state of Israel, no occupation, no settlements, no blockade inside? Why not 1920, when Arab rioters chanted "Kill the Jews," under no provocation except Jewish presence on ancestral land? And if we are starting in 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon because the PLO had been using southern Lebanon as a base to launch more than 1,000 terrorist attacks into northern Israel, killing Israeli civilians for years. Would Israel have just absorbed those attacks indefinitely? Hassan's start the clock wherever approach is an advocacy disguised as nuance. Policy number 5. The false equivalence. Saudi Arabia does bad things too. Hassan repeatedly says many countries in the Middle East do bad things. We are not invading Saudi Arabia. This is whataboutism, the logical fallacy of deflecting criticism of one actor by pointing to the bad behavior of the others. Iran is not being targeted because it does bad things. Iran is being targeted because it spent 45 years building a specific military architecture designed to destroy Israel and project power across the Middle East through proxy armies. Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, PIJ, and is building nuclear weapons to back that architecture with existential threat. Saudi Arabia does bad things domestically. Saudi Arabia is not funding 130,000 Hezbollah rockets pointed at Israeli cities. Saudi Arabia did not fund, train, and arm the organization that murdered 1,200 people on October 7. Saudi Arabia is not enriching uranium to near weapon grade while chanting death to America. These are categorically different situations. Treating them as equivalent as a deliberate obfuscation. Policy number 6. The selective historical memory. Iraq, 2003. Hassan repeatedly invokes Netanyahu's 2002 congressional testimony. If you invade Iraq, there will be positive reverberations throughout the region. Iraq was a disaster. Therefore, attacking Iran will also be a disaster. This is faulty generalization from a single case, also known as the slippery slope fallacy. It's also selective history. Yes, Iraq was a disaster, but Hassan conveniently forgets. Iran itself is not a passive actor in blowback. Iran actively funded the Shia militias that killed thousands of American soldiers in Iraq. Iran funded Al-Qaeda in Iraq's successors. Iran is the reason Iraq remains destabilized. The blowback Hassan warns about from attacking Iran, Iran has been deliberately generating that blowback against America and Israel for 4 decades, without anyone bombing them. The Iraq comparison also ignores a crucial difference. Iraq in 2002 had no nuclear weapons program of consequence. Iran in 2026 was weeks or months from nuclear breakout, with intercontinental ballistic missile capability under active development. These are not comparable situations. Policy number 7. The Epstein Gambit. Conspiracy laundering. Hassan says, Zetio, my company, did a poll of the American public recently and found 52% of Americans think the Epstein files was one of the reasons Trump went to war. He immediately adds, you might think that's a mad conspiracy theory, but the majority of Americans believe that. This is appeal to popularity, the logical fallacy that something is true or worth considering because many people believe it. 52% of Americans once believed Saddam Hussein was personally involved in 9/11. That belief was wrong. Majorities can be wrong. A poll showing people believe a conspiracy theory is not evidence the conspiracy theory is true. It's evidence that conspiracy theories spread. More importantly, Hassan is the editor of the outlet that ran this poll. He is using his own organization's polling to validate a conspiracy theory that his own organization has an interest in promoting. This is circular self-reinforcement dressed as data. Policy number 8. The omission that defines everything. Here is what Mehdi Hasan never once mentions in the entire interview. October 7. 1,200 Israelis murdered, 250 taken hostage, systematic rape, babies burned, a music festival massacre, all funded, trained, armed, and directed by Iran through Hamas. Iran didn't destabilize the region in the abstract. Iran funded a specific massacre of 1,200 specific people on a specific date. The entire context of the current Iran conflict flows directly from that event, and Hassan omits it entirely. You cannot have an honest conversation about Iran's role in the Middle East, Israel's security concerns, or the origins of the current conflict without acknowledging that Iran's proxy committed the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, 18 months before this interview. That omission is not an oversight. It is an architecture of the argument. Who is Mehdi Hasan really? Hassan frames himself as a journalist following evidence. But consider this. He works at Zetio, which he founded after being fired from MSNBC, reportedly for his coverage of Gaza. He is a British Muslim with openly stated left-wing views, who has described himself as someone motivated by justice. He has Al Jazeera in his professional background, a Qatari state media outlet. Qatar is the primary financial backer of Hamas, hosting its political leadership in Doha. None of this disqualifies his arguments. Arguments must be assessed on their merits. When a journalist who omits October 7 invokes the Israel lobby as the engine of American foreign policy, uses anti-Semitic tropes wrapped in campaign finance language, and runs his own polls showing Epstein conspiracy theories, presents himself as a neutral fact follower, that deserves scrutiny. The bottom line. Mehdi Hasan is a skilled debater. He's articulate, he used real facts selectively, he acknowledges counter-arguments before dismissing them, and he wraps ancient prejudices in the language of geopolitical analysis. But beneath the sophistication, the argument is simple. Israel manipulates America. The Israel lobby corrupts democracy. Iran's terrorism is a reaction to Israel. Hezbollah exists because of Israel. Hamas exists because of Israel. The war in Iran is Israel's fault. and anyone who disagrees is too afraid of being called anti-Semitic to say so. This is not analysis. It's all the story in the world, updated for 2026, delivered with a British accent and dressed in the language of journalism. The one thing it never includes, the 1,200 people murdered on October 7. If you find this episode helped you see the world differently, or understand something that bothered you, follow the podcast, rate it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you listen to it, and share it with your friends. Help spread the word. Thank you. I'm Igal, and this was Middle East in less than 5 minutes. Until next time, shalom.